Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another chapter reading for Breaking Free by Rachel Jeffs. I want to start off by saying thanks for joining me. I'm sorry that I left you all on the cliffhanger that I did, but I gotta knock these videos out because by now it is Thursday and I should have already reached my destination. This chapter, however, I think is going to be good because we're in chapter 21 and the first thing I see is the title and it says enough. Do you really believe I did what he said? My uncles Isaac and Lau were in the room when Uncle Nephi read Father's latest message. Isaac had always been the kindest of the three. Nephi was kind enough, but never broke Father's rules. Lau was by far the meanest. In the messages, Father was still accusing Rich and me of lying to him about having sex when we were expecting a child. He also accused us of covenanting with each other to lie to him. Never heard of it used that way, but okay. They made a covenant with each other to lie. It's God saying you did, and God knows everything you do, Nephi said. God knows I didn't do that, I said. He wouldn't tell me I did something I didn't do. Isaac got up and walked out. Rachel, you need to confess, Lau said. I have nothing to confess. Do you not accept this message of the Lord through your father, Nephi asked. What? I could feel my patience draining from my body. Do you accept this message from your father? I accept this message as coming from my father, yes, from Father. I knew God wasn't speaking to him. This charade was so stupid. My uncles told me to write a confession to Father and left. That July day, it rained. It had been a dry summer without a drop of rain through May and June, and I was ready for the change in weather. Nathaniel and I took off our shoes and socks and walked down the road in the storm. He loved running through the puddles. I didn't even care about the lightning. Oh, you need to care, hon. That's a little dangerous, but okay. Usually, it made me nervous because Monica Jessup's, my little sister Barbie's mother, had been struck by lightning and nearly died. Today, nothing mattered. I was so sick of all this ridiculous things that I was repeatedly told about myself. Our Marcia girls drove up in their pickup truck and yelled, "Come with us, Rachel." Nathaniel and I jumped in the back. Marcia had 5 girls, their ages ranging from 16 to 26. They were all in there. Lenore, who was the wildest and most fun, was driving. The rain was coming down so heavy that the roads had turned into rivers, but Lenore tore through them with abandonment. We all got soaked as the water splashed up all around us. It felt so good to cool off. I wanted the rain to never stop. In the distance, the sky began to clear. Then I saw a rainbow at the south end of the valley. Let's go find the end of it, I said. I remember when I was little, we used to try to do that same thing, like find the end of the rainbow. And it was a task that just never was accomplished. Lenore revved up the engine and we took off. Of course, the rainbow was always ahead of us, but we laughed and laughed, chasing it until it was gone. I got to know more and more of the teenagers in Short Creek through Marcia's girls. They picked me up at least once a week to do something with them. One day we were taking a walk through town in another downpour, and I said, "Let's walk down by where my children live." We headed off toward the community garden. As we got closer, I saw my sister wife Molly sitting under a colorful beach umbrella while all the children, including mine, were running around in the rain. Molly looked up and saw us. You'd think she'd seen a ghost. She grabbed the umbrella and started running. "Get in the house now," Molly screamed at the children. "Go now." The children looked around to see what the danger was, and Molly started shoving them through the gate into the yard. I smiled and waved as the last head disappeared. Marcia's girls were furious on my behalf. Who the hell does she think she is, treating you like you're some type of criminal? She sure looked ridiculous running like a maniac with the huge rainbow umbrella, I said. With that, a couple of the girls climbed the fence just to annoy Molly. Girl, you're going to get in trouble. I'm surprised they didn't move them. You need to call the people and get your kids now. We were all laughing. This is how it was between members and non-members. Even if they were in the same family, members treated us like we had some terrible contagious disease. This is what Father had wrought. I realized Father was causing a lot of people to turn into lunatics. I was never going to make it to October. In late August 2013, I wrote Father. I had been 6 months without my 4 older children. I was pretty close to done. I was seriously thinking about what it would take to live alone in the outside world. It was a scary thought, but I couldn't go on like this. My children needed me. Father, if I say what you want me to and confess that Rich and I covenanted to lie about our relationship, I will be lying. And God knows that. If I say we had sex when I was pregnant, I will be lying, and God knows that. I cannot lie. I believe God will stand by me if I stand by the truth. There were days I wanted to stand on the roof and shout to everyone I saw passing that this was all a lie, that Father was taking everyone down into a deep, dark pit. But they were all so thoroughly indoctrinated, they continued to believe that God's prophet was incapable of wrongdoing. This is so dangerous. No one was going to convince them otherwise, especially not me. I continued sowing digitally, so that I could continue receiving my share of lousy food, but that was my only act of obedience. I walked whenever and wherever I wanted, unless Marsha's girls picked me up for a ride. I didn't care what security thought of me or what they reported to my uncles. And then came a miracle. On March 27th, 2013, Uncle Lyle called me. Rachel, your father wants your children to come live with you. Seriously? Yes. You are still not a member, and he doesn't want you to be a member, Lyle said, but your children are to come live with you. I sat down on the floor in the hall, the phone still at my ear. I'm going to move you to a bigger house, and then we'll bring your children to you. It will take about a week. I hope this isn't a lie. I was sobbing. Really? A week? Yes, Rachel, Lyle said, and hung up. Why now? Why was Father suddenly giving me my children? Because maybe you were becoming too much of a problem, especially because you called him out and said you weren't lying. I could only imagine that Father was starting to understand that he didn't have power over me anymore. I was no longer going to put up with this craziness. Father better be nice to me, I thought, or I might leave and tell his secrets. Whatever Father was thinking, I didn't really care. I was so glad to be getting my children back and relieved that I didn't have to live with my sister wives. It would be just me and my kids in our own house. It didn't matter that we weren't members as long as we were together. On the evening of September 5th, 2013, my daughter Martha's 9th birthday, Uncle Lyle's son Dalton brought me on the evening of September 5th, 2013, my daughter Martha's 9th birthday, Uncle Lyle's son Dalton brought my children to me. It was the most grateful I have felt in all my life. We had been apart for 7 long months. When they came inside, I fell to my knees and hugged and kissed them all as tears filled my eyes. 3-year-old Lavender cuddled up to me and cried. We all went into my room and climbed onto my bed. We stayed there talking until it grew completely dark. You can all sleep here, I said. It was crowded with all 6 of us, but I didn't want to let any of them out of my sight or my reach. As we lay in the dark, Lavender said, Mother, what bad thing did I do so that the prophet took me away from you? It wasn't you, I said. You've never done anything bad, ever. And I promise you with all my heart that I will never let them take you away from me again, no matter what anyone says. Lavender put her arms around my neck and snuggled in closer. Okay, she said, and fell asleep. Understand that she said that her 3-year-old asked her this question, which goes to show you how early they work on indoctrinating these people to believe this mess that Warren Jeffs and crew have come up with. And that poor baby was blaming herself as to one of the reasons why she wasn't around her mom. The next days and weeks were a time of healing, but it wasn't easy. We had all been hurt deeply by what we'd experienced and in the last 7 months. Barbie and Martha told me about their troubling experiences with the other mothers. When Lavender wet her pants, Gloria wouldn't let her change to teach her a lesson. You wondering why the baby has UTIs, and you're making her stay in her pants to teach her a lesson. Urine will eat at your skin. Moisture sometimes will cause soreness and things of that nature, depending on your skin. And here you are, and you're leaving her there. I know me, my skin is so sensitive that when I sweat, like right here burns. It burns my face, but mainly right here. And here you are with this little 3-year-old, and you're punishing her by making her sit in that. And you're supposed to be a sister wife, a good sister wife, a member. So the members get to treat your kids like crap, and nothing is done to them. Meanwhile, the non-members are being punished for doing nothing but being treated like crap. She left Lavender to cry in her bed all night because the wet pants made her sore. Martha had spent most of her days in bed as punishments. She was an adventurous girl, and she got into trouble for anything fun she thought up to do. Rulon, who was now 5, had been bullied a lot by the other children. Now we were together in a nice house. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs and 1 for me, 1 for the girls and another for the boys. Downstairs, there was a good-sized living room with a vaulted ceiling and lots of windows. The kitchen cabinets and banisters were all made from cherry wood. I spent most days homeschooling them and giving them piano and violin lessons. I was so grateful for the opportunity to do the daily household chores now, make meals, wash laundry, and clean a house for my children. We were still forbidden to speak to anyone or go anywhere, but sometimes we'd sneak out and go for a little hike up the mountain. Or I asked Martha's girls to come get us, to take us on a ride to the park or just around town. Security would sometimes stop us to remind me, your father doesn't want you out walking, and Lyle would call me and tell me himself. I didn't care. 2 weeks after, I was reunited with my children. Father sent a message that my children and I were to be rebaptized yet again, which would make us members of the United Order again. Once, this would have made me happy, but now it was hard to come to terms with becoming a member again after all that had been done to me and my family in the name of the church. Uncle Lyle sent one of his daughters to tend to my younger children while Barbie, Martha, and I were rebaptized, and I lost count of how many times I had been through this ritual. Uncles Isaac, Nephi, and Lyle were all there to perform the ceremony. There was a large baptismal fount in the center of the room. Nephi baptized each of us in turn, and then Isaac and Nephi laid their hands on our heads to bless us. Lyle stood by and took notes. After that, we started attending general meetings again. My girls hated meeting, and I tried to find any reason at all not to go. I hated having them to go to. It was also depressing. We had to sit in a small side room since we are part from Father's family and supposed to be in hiding. Since we are part of his family and supposed to be in hiding. Father's family was always treated as better or above the other members of the church, so we were not supposed to be seen by anyone. The meetings were longer and worse than ever. Father's revelations were more and more extreme. Everyone had to covenant by the end of the year that they would think only pure thoughts. If you broke that covenant, say a boy thinking romantically about a girl or a wife wanting to have sex with her own husband, you'd have to confess and repent for a time, then be rebaptized. This is some crap. The children were told that if they even thought about a complaint about a chore given to them by their parents or priesthood head, which was any man in charge of them, they too would have to confess and repent. Increasingly, I wondered how the people could put up with it. The same way you are at this point, Rachel, because you're still there and you told us you were going to be leaving. Now you got your children, but you said you were going to be leaving. In March 2014, my sister Shirley, who was 2 years younger than me, moved in with us for a month. Father had sent her to Short Creek to repent. I was so happy to see her and to have another adult to talk to. Shirley had been married to my husband's brother Seth, but she never had any children. For the day after their wedding, she had never let her husband touch her. While she lived with us, she kept herself locked in her room because she was afraid of my little boys. A 2- and 5-year-old. What? Afraid of them how? If they came near the door, she'd yell at them to go away. Nathaniel and Rulon became afraid of her because she was so mean to them for no apparent reason. In my heart, I had my suspicions. One night, she and I were talking, and she said it was really hard on my boys and I said, it's really hard on my boys when you treat them like that. I don't know what's wrong with me. They frighten me. I knew she'd never tell me the truth, but I asked anyway. Were you abused by a man when you were younger? No, Shirley said quickly. Too quickly, I thought. Then she changed the subject. When the boys were in bed at night, she could be a lot of fun, but having Shirley living with us was like having 3 more children to look after. She was terrified of mice, so of course they found their way into her bedroom. She would come get me at midnight to help her get rid of one. I was no fan of mice either, so inevitably she and I would stand on the bed or the counter while brave Martha got the mouse out from under the bed. When Father sent her back to her husband, I was a little relieved. I felt terrible for her, but it was the best thing for my sons. The first Sunday in May, Martha stayed at Uncle Lyle's house to tend to the younger children while Barbie and I went to meeting. When we got back, Martha was crying hard. We saw Father, she said between sobs. They had been walking on the back lawn when they saw Rich running down the porch stairs. Unbeknownst to us, Rich was living at Lyle's house. He stopped at the bottom when he saw his children. We yelled, Father, but he just stood there and looked at us. Martha said, then he turned and ran the other way down the path. This made her cry all the harder. He didn't say anything. I felt so wicked just for seeing him. I pulled Martha close to me and wrapped her in my arms. You did nothing wrong, I told her. I couldn't believe that Rich did not go to his children and hug them, not even his baby. I knew he was loyal to Father and that Father had told him he couldn't have contact with his own family, but run away from his own children in front of them, it seemed really rude and crazy to me. Rachel, I don't know why you're so surprised, and I thought that enough meant she was going to be gone, but apparently it didn't, because here she is, still there, putting up with this mess. They can still come at any time to take your kids from you when they want to. I don't think it's a good idea for you to still be there. If I were you, I would go. But apparently, she hasn't had enough yet. So let's see what this next chapter brings. Chapter 22, Flirting with Damnation. Rulon fell out of the kitchen window. What in the world? Like, what? Rulon, you keep falling. You already messed up your hip, boo-boo. What are you doing? Oh, goodness. I hope it was on the first floor. Rulon fell out of the kitchen window. Martha screamed from the kitchen. I ran up from the laundry room where I was folding clothes. He was sitting on the windowsill leaning against the screen, and it gave out, she said. I looked out, and he was on the ground, unconscious. I ran outside to him. Rulon. He opened his eyes when I said his name, sat up and put his hand to the side of his head. Then he began to cry. I was about to call 911. Then I remembered that in Short Creek, everybody was in the church, including the paramedics. No one was going to take us to the hospital without Uncle Lyle say so. I called Lyle and told him what happened. He told me to wait, watch him and see how he does. Tempted as I was to go around him and call for help anyway, I knew no one would disobey Lyle. Rulon vomited several times during the night, and his head and eyes swelled badly. The next morning, a Sunday, I was required to go to Lyle's house for Sunday school. One of Lyle's wives always came to pick me and my children up and take me over there. The younger children would stay at the house while the older two and I went to a meeting. Now that I was a member again, we were not allowed to miss any meetings. If we had to attend to children, then we were required to go the following day and listen to recordings of the meetings. Let me tell you something. It's better to not be a member then, because why are you torturing me with listening to this crap from my father who's locked up and from you blind men that continue to follow him? Sometimes meetings ran as long as 8 hours or more. 8 hours of a person talking. After Sunday school that day, I took Rulon to see Lau, who was clearly alarmed by the extent of the swelling. He started questioning me like he was Child Protective Services, trying to pin blame for Rulon's accident on me. He asked me what happened over and over again to see if my story would change. I told you what happened. He fell out a window. Lau told me I needed to get my kids and me on Medicaid and food stamps before I could seek medical attention for my son. That's not something that happens quickly. That's the whole process. And I thought that they weren't supposed to get on public assistance. So now, because they're taking everything and they don't have any money, rather than getting a bill, you want her to get on public assistance? Go to the hospital, Rachel. Worry about all that stuff after. They'll back pay it if they need to. Insurance companies do that sometimes. Well, I think Medicaid does at least. I could be wrong though. Let me stay in my lane. Lau told me I needed to get my kids and me on Medicaid and food stamps before I could seek medical attention for my son. Father had previously not wanted his family to take government assistance. But how long does that take? He needs help now. I could see there was no changing his mind. So I called Isaac, since he was superior in the church hierarchy to Lau. Tell Lau that I want you to take Rulon to the hospital, Isaac said. It didn't work. Lau still wouldn't let us go. It took many days for his swelling to go down. I was certain he fractured his skull, but we never got to find out for sure. Rachel, I'm surprised you let that go down. I really am. But Uncle Lau had one of his wives figure out how to get me and my children on food stamps and Medicaid. Another wife told me that when my food card came, I was supposed to give it to Uncle Lau if I wanted to be taken care of by the church. So now you guys have them defrauding the system, because they're getting these food stamp cards, and rather than allowing them to keep them and use them for their children, you're taking them and using them for your own self. This is ridiculous. I wasn't happy about that. I wanted my food card. So often my kids and I had gone without food we needed because we were limited to what was brought to us by Lau's family once a week. If we ran out of anything before the next delivery, there was nothing we could do about it. Once we only had a bag of rice to eat. I didn't know then that the government had seized the church's money after Father's arrest. I can't say if that's why food was so scarce. I did know that there was a time when Father sent a message from prison that he wanted copies of his Revelation book to be printed on top quality paper and bound with the best materials. These books were sent to leaders, law enforcement officials, and all over the world, and it cost $2 million. $2 million, which drained the church's funds. And for a time, women and children in the church went without food and new clothing to pay for this publication. The church leaders did not have to do without, though. Every Sunday we were at Lau's house, and we saw that his family ate much better than not only us, but than all the people, because his family is getting all your food stamps. There was always sugar and nuts and other nice things to eat, things that we never had. When my food and mail were next delivered, Lau's wife stood there waiting for me to hand over the food card. My sister Becky showed up at my house one day in May. How did you find me? I was so happy to see her. I knew you were here somewhere, so I've just been walking around trying to figure it out. It turned out that her house wasn't far from mine. Becky had her 2 older children with her now, but she hadn't seen her youngest 2 in 2 years, so she was still suffering. She had disobeyed father and Uncle Lau several times and gone to the hospital for help. At my lowest times, I remember that you said anything is better than killing myself. Becky told me that she had hitched a ride out to Sentinel, where our grandparents live. Is it Sentinel or Centennial? Centennial. Out where our grandparents live. She didn't know their address, but she tried to explain to me where the house was. I was really happy that she found our mother's parents. Naturally, security told Lau that Becky had come over, and he called me to say I mustn't let her do that, but she continued to sneak over as often as she dared. And every night after I put the younger children to bed, my 2 older girls and I climbed out on the roof of our house while Becky did the same at hers. We would wave at each other and watch the sunset together. It made life a tiny bit better. A month later, in June, I was sitting in the van at Uncle Lau's house, waiting to go to meeting, when I saw my sister Angela walking across the driveway. I jumped out and ran over to her. "What are you doing here?" I said. "Ha! What do you think? The same thing everyone else does here. I'm repenting." Angela was now staying at Lau's with her son and swapped phone numbers once again. My house wasn't far from Lau's, so I would walk over and Angela would open the gate for me. We try to be careful not to be seen, but most of the time because we didn't want Lau to get after us for visiting. When we couldn't see each other, we talked on the phone as much as we could. It was such a comfort to have Angela to talk to and share living alone experiences. At one point, she had gotten very ill with cysts, which had grown so large that she looked 6 months pregnant, she said. She wrote father, but he wouldn't let her get medical attention. He didn't learn anything from what happened with Rachel's mom. Nothing. Angela knew if the cyst burst, she could die, so she decided to lie to her uncles. I told them that I had appendicitis, and they let me go to the hospital. She was really lucky. One of the cysts burst on the way. Wow. The doctors were furious that she had delayed. Let me explain. That could kill you. That could kill you. So if she hadn't disobeyed, she could have been gone. We'd all had that experience of not being able to explain to the medical people. Oh, the doctors were furious that she had delayed. We all had the experiences of not being able to explain to medical people why we couldn't get help sooner. Angela's health was still fragile after that. She took herbs and natural remedies to help keep cysts under control, but invariably someone would find out and tell father, and he would send her a message telling her to stop taking them. It was as though father wanted me to die, Angela said. Why would he do that? With nothing else left to her, Angela started drinking glasses of water with tablespoons of cayenne pepper mixed in it. Fortunately, it worked and the cyst shrank. She didn't dare tell anyone for fear that they'd tell father, and this one thing that was helping her would be taken away too. Angela and Becky showed up at my house together one night around 10 o'clock. We stayed up talking on the back porch until after 3 in the morning. It was so great to be able to talk about the member versus non-member nonsense that I had experienced. Angela had been a non-member in South Dakota, and our own family wouldn't even wave at her. If she smiled at them, they would turn away because father had instructed them to. I want to go kick all of them in the pants, I said. Now Angela and I were both members and Becky wasn't, and we didn't care. We were not going to let that get between us. I vowed that I would never treat another person badly, no matter what the situation. It seemed unchristian. Right. Because y'all are supposed to be devout Christians. Y'all are supposed to be peculiar people. Y'all are supposed to be the people that get to go places that us, as they call them, Gentiles, us normal folk, don't get to go. When the crazy thing is that they're doing acts in some instances that are far worse than what they would call Gentiles are doing. They're sitting there and you're breaking apart families and you're hurting children and you're moving children into adult situations and you're marrying 12-year-olds and you're violating those 12-year-olds and you're violating your daughters and you're violating all these women because you're forcing them to lay with these men that they really don't want to, and you're forcing them to be baptized and you're forcing them to not eat certain things. Meanwhile, you get to eat, and you're causing all types of mental issues. Meanwhile, you're in jail enjoying AC and putting down all types of rules and regulations on these people. Angela and I also asked Becky questions about our grandparents and their family and Centennial. I could tell by the questions Angela was asking that she was thinking about leaving the church too. None of us dared say it out loud to the others, or we would seal our damnation and live in misery forever. Y'all, I know it's a short video. Let me see, because I'm short on time. Let me see how much this chapter is and if we got time. Okay. I guess I can read it. Chapter 23, Sister Secret. Angela, Becky, and I continued to secretly visit one another for several weeks. Then Angela showed up one night in early July 2014 and told me that Father was sending her away to live alone again in South Dakota. Whatever you do, please keep your phone, I said. We can't lose contact again. I think we might really need each other soon. I would miss her terribly after having spent so much time with her recently, but it helped knowing I could reach her in an emergency. We didn't dare call otherwise, since that summer we were receiving weekly messages from Father saying that God didn't want anyone in his family to write, call, or talk to one another. We were told it was for Father's safety. Yeah, right. It was a way to control, because he knew that you girls were starting to see that he was full of crap. Other restrictions were imposed without explanation. Parents were now forbidden to hug their children. What? We were told to stop writing personal journals or keep any kind of personal history with writing or picture. I assume this was because Father's custom of keeping detailed records of his own activities helped convict him, and he still had federal charges pending. Father also said that rice and mayonnaise were unacceptable before the Lord. I mean, just everything, like anything white, just take it out of your diet, because you can't have the rice and you can't have the potatoes, and now you can't have mayonnaise, and you can't have eggs, and you can't. What exactly do they have left? Oh, they're not supposed to have sugar either, or cocoa, or all these things. He continued to remind us to drink water every half hour on the hour and half hour exactly, and to kneel for prayer hourly. A few days after Angela had to move, I received my own message. I was to move to a house of hiding in Colorado with my children and my sister Josie, whom I hadn't seen in years. I think Josie was meant as a sort of gift to me to make me feel a part of Father's family after years of keeping me away from them. My children and I were excited to be getting out of our fenced-in world of Short Creek. We packed up our things the same evening we received the message. Seth Allred and our sister Shirley would be taking us to Colorado the next morning. It took most of the day to make the 700-mile drive. The house, a 4-bedroom ranch, sat on a beautiful 10-acre property near Pikes Peak at an elevation of 11,000 feet. It was a big change from the desert. Josie arrived a day after us. I was surprised by what a beautiful, mature young woman she had grown into. At 19, she was now Father's oldest unmarried daughter. She was 2 inches taller than me, and her hair was a stunning shade of auburn that I'd never seen before, nor have I since. The way she held herself and the way she talked reminded me so much of our mother. Do you want to share a room with Lavender? I said. The 2 older girls would share another room. The boys and I, a third, fourth, would be used as a classroom. Sure, but Father told all of us girls at home that we have to have our own room so we don't think of moral thoughts about anyone else. That seems kind of weird, doesn't it? I was careful not to say too much. I mean, I never thought improper thoughts about my sisters. I guess I don't think it took too long for Josie to figure out that I was struggling toward father, although I didn't dare say it outright. On July 10th, I was sitting by my boys' beds, waiting for them to fall asleep when my phone rang. It was Angela. I left their bedside and went to sit on my own. Angela, seriously? I said as I answered. It was extremely dangerous for her to call me now. What are you doing? I don't think I can stand living alone any longer. It was hard to make out what she was saying. She was crying so hard. Did something happen? I said. It took her a couple of moments to compose herself, minutes to compose herself enough to speak. You know what father did to you when you were younger? I sat up. I had never said anything to her about it. Rachel, are you there? Yes. My hands were starting to shake. I know you know what I'm talking about, Angela said. How do you know about it? Because he did the same things to me. Multiple people, a lot of you all, and myself included, thought that she was not the only child that things were done to. Remember, a few of us have said it in the comment section that it's possible that he probably did this to his other daughters as well. What was so special that it was just Rachel? And now we know for a fact that she wasn't the only daughter that he did this to, because this is the first time someone is admitting this to her. I had no idea, I said. I thought I was the only one. The tears I cried then were ones of relief. I am so sorry father did that to you, but I am so glad to know that someone understands me, that someone believes me. But how did you find out he did it to me? Angela told me that when Becky was putting together my scrapbook at the triplex, Angela had seen some of the letters father had written to me asking my forgiveness. I knew right away what he was referring to. Father had started abusing Angela when she was 6 years old, doing the same things to her he had been doing to me for 2 years by then. Everything she said brought back memories and images of those years. Angela told me father laid the blame for it on her just as he had on me. Angela, when I told you to touch me, he told her, I was just testing you to see if you wanted to do it. You did it. So that shows me you have immoral desires. Father continued to abuse her until she was 10 years old. Why do you suppose father kept you and me alone so much? Angela said. It's because of this. I think so too. Someday we're going to have to leave. I had to finally say it. Now I feel like I can thanks to you because you understand. Same here, she said. We kept talking the whole night long. Both of us so relieved to finally be able to shine light on our deepest, darkest secret. It was a moment of alleviation for me. Having someone else hear and accept my truth was wonderful beyond description. Here's the thing. Becky believed her when she first told her. Becky told her to say something. She said something, nothing happened. Rachel had told her mother. Rachel had told Rich. Rachel had told Becky. Rachel had told Uncle Isaac. And now Rachel and Angela are talking about it. And for the first time after all these years, after birthing 6 children successfully, I think it is at this point, after several miscarriages, this girl for the first time is experiencing some form of relief, because for the first time, someone truly believes her, can relate to what she's been through, and is allowing her to express herself. I said it before in another video. Unless you've been through a situation where you've experienced some form of abuse, whether it be mental or physical, emotional, you can't begin to understand what it feels like when you're finally believed. And to know that he did this, not only to Rachel at 8, but to her sister as early as 6, makes me wonder what he was doing when they were little babies. Because these two who've now told one another aren't the only two. Y'all saw the picture. Matter of fact, let me find it. That picture that I had shown in a previous chapter of not even all, of some of her sisters. Let me remind you that this picture takes up 2 pages of some of her sisters, which means these aren't the only ones that he probably did it to. Look again. Look at how many little girls that is that are just his daughters alone. He's disgusting. And I can't wait. I can't wait for her to get out of this. You all, tell me what you thought of this chapter. Not this chapter, these chapters. What stood out the most to you? Until next time.